Hare Krishna. Bhagavad Gita as it is. Bhagavad Gita ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the introduction of Bhagavad Gita as it is. So in the previous video, we were discussing about the material nature, the nature of the material world. So continuing from there, it is said that elsewhere in the Gita, chapter 8, verse number 21, it is stated, Avyaktokshara ityuktas tamahu paramam gatim yam prapyana nivartante tadhama paramam mama. Avyakta means unmanifested. Not even all of the material world is manifested before us. Our senses are so imperfect that we cannot even see all of the stars within this material universe. In the Vedic literature, we can receive much information about all the planets, and we can believe it or not believe it. All of the important planets are described in the Vedic literatures, especially Srimad Bhagavatam, and the spiritual world, which is beyond the material sky, is described as Avyakta, unmanifested. One should desire and hanker after that supreme kingdom, for when one attains that kingdom, he does not have to return to this material world. Next, one may raise the question of how one goes about approaching that abode of the Supreme Lord. Information of this is given in the 8th chapter. It is said there, Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram yaha prayati samadbhavam yati nastyatra samshaya. Quote, and whoever at the end of his life quits his body remembering me alone at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Unquote. Bhagavad Gita 8.5. One who thinks of Krishna at the time of his death goes to Krishna. One must remember the form of Krishna. If he quits his body thinking of this form, he surely approaches the spiritual kingdom. Madbhavam refers to the supreme nature of the Supreme Being. The Supreme Being is Satchid Ananda Vigraha, that is, his form is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. Our present body is not Satchid Ananda, it is Asat, not Sat. It is not eternal, it is perishable. It is not Chit, full of knowledge, but it is full of ignorance. We have no knowledge of the spiritual kingdom, nor do we even have perfect knowledge of this material world, where there are so many things unknown to us. The body is also Nirananda. Instead of being full of bliss, it is full of misery. All of the miseries we experience in this material world arise from the body. But one who leaves the body thinking of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, at once attains a Satchidananda body. So that was page number 22 of the introduction. Here, Srila Prabhupada is telling us about the spiritual abode of the Lord, and not all the spiritual abode is available to us. I mean, part of the spiritual world which is beyond the material sky is unmanifested. It is described as avyakta. And our desire should not be for the things of the material world. We should desire for the ultimate, which is the spiritual abode of Lord Krishna. And one who reaches that abode is not going to come back into this material world of suffering. And one may ask, how can we reach that spiritual abode of Krishna? And the way to do it, or the process, is given here. Antakale cha mam eva smaran muktva kalevaram. The person who at the time of leaving his body thinks of Krishna, the form of Krishna, is definitely going to attain to Krishna or attain to the spiritual abode of Krishna, and there is no doubt of that. Lord, the Supreme Lord Krishna is giving us 100% guarantee that at the time of death, if you think of me, you will surely come back to me. So that is a great blessing for us living entities who have fallen into this material world because of our own foolishness, but we are getting this chance by the Lord to go back to Him. It is said that the exam, you see, this world is like a school, and we are learning lessons every day, and our final exam is at the time of death. At the time of death, the consciousness, your consciousness is going to determine what your next life is going to be like. There are many instances where at the time of death, you people who have been thinking of something, they attend to that. For example, in Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a very popular story of Bharat Maharaj, who left his entire kingdom to meditate in the forest. But in the forest, the Bharat Maharaj got attached to a deer, a small deer, baby deer. And at the time of death, Bharat Maharaj was thinking of the baby deer, and what happened was that in the next life he attained a deer's body. So from the human body he got a demotion, he got degraded into an animal body. So what you think of at the last moment of your life is very, very important. So Lord Krishna says that if you think of me, 100% sure you're going to come back to me. That is a guarantee given by the Lord. So we have to take that very seriously. So that is how one can reach Lord's abode, by thinking of Him at the time of death. And the other thing that is given here is that the Lord's body is Satchidananda. It is full of bliss, and it's eternal, and it's full of knowledge. And ours is just the opposite. Lord is Sat, Chit, Ananda, and we are Asat, and we are not in Ananda, we are in suffering. So our endeavor should be to reach the abode of the God and to get a spiritual body, which is also Satchidananda. Now we move on to the battlefield of Kurukshetra, where the war is about to begin. Arjuna is giving arguments in favor of not fighting. Arjuna did not want to fight. He gave several reasons, mainly 5 reasons. The first reason is that he was feeling compassion for his relatives. The second reason Arjuna gives is that he feels that he cannot enjoy the kingdom if he has to kill all his family members. The third reason that Arjuna gives is that he will incur sin by killing his own family members. That is a sin. So he didn't want to, get sin by doing such an act. And the fourth reason is that if you kill all the male members of the family, then the family will, the structure of the family will be broken. And as a result of that, many things happen, like the women have no protection, there's unwanted progeny, the family traditions would be stopped, and so on. So last video we did verse number 43. Now we go to 44. Aho bata mahat papam kartum vyavasthita vayam yadrajya sukha lobena hantum swajanam udyata. Alas, how strange it is that we are preparing to commit greatly sinful act. Driven by the desire to enjoy royal happiness, We are intent on killing our own kinsmen. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Driven by selfish motive, one may be inclined to such sinful act such as killing one's own brother, father or mother. There are many such instances in the history of the world, but Arjuna, being a saintly devotee of the Lord, is always conscious of the moral principles and therefore takes care to avoid such activities. Verse number 45. Yadi mama pratikaram ashastram shastrapanaya dhartarashtrarane hanyus tanme kshemataram bhavet. Better for me if the sons of Dhritarashtra, weapons in hand, were to kill me unarmed and unresisting on the battlefield. Purport. It is a custom, according to Kshatriya fighting principles, that an unarmed and unwilling foe should not be attacked. Arjuna, however, decided that even if attacked by the enemy in such an awkward position, he will not fight. He did not consider how much the other party was bent upon fighting. All these symptoms are due to soft-heartedness resulting from his being a great devotee of the Lord. Sanjay Uvacha Evamuktvārjuna Sankhe Rathopastha Upavishat Visrajya Sasharam Chapam Shoka Samvignamanasa. Sanjay said, Arjuna, having thus spoken on the battlefield, cast aside his bow and arrows and sat down on the chariot, his mind overwhelmed with grief. Purport. While observing the situation of his enemy, Arjuna stood up on the chariot, but he was so afflicted with lamentation that he sat down again, setting aside his bow and arrows. Such a kind and soft-hearted person in the devotional service of the Lord is fit to receive self-knowledge. Thus ends the Bhagavad Bhaktivedanta purport to the first chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So with that, we come to the end of chapter number 1, observing the armies. As you saw, the first chapter is about the preparation for the war. The war has not begun. And here in these 3 verses, Arjuna continues to give reasons for not fighting. As I said, he gave 4 reasons. And now he's saying that, oh my God, we were going to incur a great sin by going ahead with this war. He feels that the enemy side, his cousins, are not so much aware of the repercussions of this war, but I am aware of the disasters of the war, so I should not do it knowingly. And he even goes to the extent of saying that even if the enemy attacks me when I am not carrying any weapons, even then it's better to die unarmed. You see, in the Kshatriya code of conduct, in the battlefield, one is not supposed to fight or kill an enemy who is not holding any weapon. Even when the enemy is holding a weapon, and if his attention is somewhere else, you have to bring him, caution him, bring him to the to understand that you're going to attack him. You must have seen in serials like Mahabharata, they say savdhan, means beware, like attention or beware, something like that, where you bring the enemy's attention before you attack him. So these are the ethical and moral codes of fighting for the Kshatriya. Arjuna says the enemy side is not on, they are not following any dharma. So even if I put down my bow, even if they attack me when I'm not armed, even then it's okay. I'm willing to die, but I cannot do this great sin of killing my own family. And he gives us so many reasons why he cannot do it. So Arjuna is giving his arguments, and He was standing up and observing the opposite side. Now he becomes so overwhelmed with emotion that he has to sit down again. He put down his bow and arrow, and Srila Prabhupada is saying that his symptoms, the way he's behaving, is just because of his pure heartedness, soft heartedness. He's a devotee of the Lord, so he's full of compassion. But some people on the superficial level can think that Arjuna is afraid. That's in the next chapter. Krishna says your enemies will think that you are afraid, but that is not the reason why Arjuna doesn't want to fight. It is because of his soft-heartedness, not out of fear. And at the last verse, Sanjaya is describing what happens. That Arjuna put aside his bow and arrow. He sat down on a chariot, overwhelmed with grief, and so here at the last line, Srila Prabhupada says that such a kind and soft-hearted person such as Arjuna is fit to receive self-knowledge. Now you see, this is a very valid point. In today's day and age, knowledge is something people acquire aggressively. It's like a hunter going to hunt. You acquire the knowledge, you catch the knowledge by the head and you bring it back. No, that is the wrong attitude of attaining knowledge. If you want to attain knowledge, the first step is to be humble. You have to be humble, you have to be soft-hearted, pure-hearted. Then only you can imbibe that knowledge. You cannot capture knowledge like that. See, knowledge is represented in our dharma as Saraswati Devi, goddess Saraswati. You have to humbly request the goddess to bless you, and then you get knowledge. So the key word here is being humble, and Arjuna is a apt candidate for receiving knowledge. In the second chapter, Krishna starts giving knowledge to Arjuna, the self-knowledge, the highest knowledge. The knowledge of this material world is mundane. We just learn about rocks and stones and bricks and this and that, all mundane things. But the knowledge of the spirit, Atma Gyan, that is the highest form of knowledge. In order to gain that, the first step is to be very humble. So with that, we finish the first chapter. Next video we begin the second chapter. The first chapter was all about observing the army. Many times people who read Bhagavad Gita tend to skip the first chapter because they feel it's just a description of the preparation for war. Where is the moral lessons in this chapter? But no, it is very important because everything begins with observation. Just note that Prabhupada has given the title Observing the Army. So observation is a key word. How we live our life depends on how we observe things. The way we observe, we think. The way we think, we act and speak. And the way we act and speak, that makes our life. You see, makes or breaks our life. So observation is very crucial. Whether you look at a glass and see it as half empty or half full, it is all about observation. So Prabhupada has very wisely used the word observing the armies, whereas if you see the other publications, the title of the chapter could be different, like Arjuna Vishada Yoga, Lamentation of Arjuna, but Srila Prabhupada has used the word observing. So this chapter is very important, and all the chapters, 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita are important, including the first chapter. So we just finished the first chapter. I hope you have understood something, benefited in some way. If you like the video, please give us a thumbs up. Please feel free to share with your friends and family, and please subscribe to the channel. See you next time, next video. Bhagavad Gita as it is. Till then, Hare Krishna.